welcome to Becoming the Community CEO. I'm your host, Roberto Candelaria. And over the past several years, I've partnered with leaders around the world to build highly engaged and profitable communities. Through this journey, I also discovered the characteristics that these communities had in common, and today, I'm here to share them with you. Together, we'll explore conversations around community building, partnerships, leadership, and profits. These are the core areas to becoming the community CEO. And now, let's jump into this week's episode. Well, hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the show. And I'm curious, do you have a favorite TV show or series that, either you watched it live or maybe you caught it a bit later than the rest and did the lovely Netflix or the Hulu binge thing? You do? Well, listen, I'm the same way. And if you don't, what? How do you not have a favorite show? Well, so anyways, welcome to my world. If you're one of those people that absolutely loves to binge shows, I love to binge shows, and it's often times new shows, but it's not always a new show. You see, I'm one of those people that I love consistency, and I also love familiarity. And so some of my favorite shows are Numbers and Criminal Minds. Love The Blacklist. I'm so glad it's still on. How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal. Y'all, listen. I love Scandal. And more importantly, I love me some Olivia Pope. And so we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. But the reason that I mentioned that I love these shows is because as much as we watch TV, right? One of the most recent things that I completely binged was Squid Games, which was, if you haven't watched it, you should. And if you did watch it, oh my God, did you know that the old man was who the old man was? Oh my God, I wasn't expecting it. But anyways, so Olivia Pope and Scandal, right? I watched all 7 seasons, all of them, did not miss an episode, did not miss a week. I had my popcorn, I had my red wine ready, and recently I started to watch them again. Well, not completely watching though, because more in the background. I love to have noise in the background. So some people play music, other people have the little water noises and all of that. I love TV shows playing in the background when I'm working. So yeah, I recently headed back to Pope and Associates. And one of the things that I forgot, that I loved about this show is that no matter what the team at Pope and Associates faces, no matter what Olivia herself faces, with so many wins, with so much experience under their belt, and I should say probably her stylish belt, she still approaches every situation with full attention to detail. They ask questions, she's renewing her awareness of the reality, and every step of the way, she is checking in, the team is checking in, and to see hey, are we doing okay? Are we doing all right? Is there a better way? Is there a different way? Is there a question that we didn't ask? And some people might refer to this as a beginner's mindset. And what I was reminded about recently watching this is that seriously, every new case is meticulously assessed. And even if she's known somebody, even if the team has known somebody for years, whether they've known him for years, their new connections, every single experience is taken into consideration because every detail matters to them. She makes sure that the details matter. The team makes sure that the details matter because they're not scared of asking simple questions. They're not afraid to consider possibilities over and over and over. And although she loves to win, and although she says that failure is not an option, they're not afraid to fail. They just go out and they lay it all on the table in a full display of how a clear and open mind can leave you feeling vulnerable. But at the same time as you feel that vulnerability, you're able to go forward and win. It's very common amongst people that are starting up or even considering some new experience that fear can come over us, right? And when we experience fear, that we begin to think I like to say the lovely committee in our head starts to tell us oh, well, you're going to look inexperienced. Like, you're going to look like you don't know what you're doing. You're going to look like an amateur. You're going to look like this is your first day on the job. And you see, like, what happens is amateur, inexperienced, or unfitting. Like, all of these things that we tell ourselves, they are deadly adjectives that our inner critic, our self-critic, likes to toss around. And sometimes way too often, like, that's where imposter syndrome also comes from. So let me say this, y'all. There is everything to be gained if you are just getting started. There is everything to be gained if you are just getting started. And also, there's everything to be gained if wherever we are in our journeys, we're looking at things from a place of that beginner. You see, because we all have a starting point. We all have a starting point. Same with an email list, right? Like, if you're building your email list and you go sign up with ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or Entreport or wherever you sign up, as soon as you sign up, your email list has 0 people. It has 0 people until you add the first person, which is usually you. And, my first mailing list was me, my mom, and my dog before we actually started doing it. And so you see, everybody has been at this starting point, but it is our mindset that can, right, make the biggest difference and does make the biggest difference between inconsistent success and long-lasting business relationships or failure. So today, we're going to chat about some of the core differences between having an amateur versus a beginner's mindset. And I want to see like which ones resonate with you, which ones feel good with you, and which ones are an opportunity to explore internally and be like, you know what, like there's a little bit better way for me to approach this or to be open to a different approach. So an amateur's mindset will have you covering up or just like trying to make simple things very fancy so that you seem experienced. You see, if we stay focused, if one stays focused on covering up ways that someone could catch a lack of experience or lack of skill, then what happens is you spend a considerable amount of time and energy looking for the latest trends or the buzzwords or the styles because you're being like, how do I seem relevant? How do I put this into my work, into my emails? How do I put this into the social post? But even worse than that, right, is that you'll lose perspective of the steps needed to create real value for your community, for your customer, for yourself. And instead, right, and instead of like trying to make sure that you can outshine other people, take time to do the work. You see, and Scandal, there's this one guy, and he is always trying to mimic Olivia's strategies with her opponents. Do you remember his name? And I know that there's some of y'all that love Harry Potter and Disney movies and basically any like film franchise, right? There's always someone who's trying to copy the star, and we don't always remember their name. Like, I don't always remember their name. So we want to be people, right, that look at details, because a beginner's mindset allows us the opportunity to be focused on being thorough with all the details. You see, as we have this beginner's approach, we encourage ourselves to be curious. And that may be like looking at case studies. It may be devoting enough time to know your market, to know your community. And one of the things that it really does is a beginner's mindset allows us the opportunity to ask for help in setting up something, ask for help in setting up a plan, a place without judgment, because as we get back to the basics, we're able to get the most out of every step in the project. I am, as of the recording of this, 13 years into business, and I still make mistakes. I still get things wrong, and I still ask myself, what's possible as we look for new ways to reach our desired result? A great example of this is even recently, our team is working on moving a membership that we'd been running to a different platform. And we started with this approach of initially, right, was like, okay, it's going to be on the Facebook group. It's going to be this, it's going to be this. And then I was like, whoa, like, let's think about that, right? Like, we tried this on Facebook before and we just didn't get the result that we wanted. So like, let's go back and let's ask all the questions. So who is our ideal customer on this, and where do they hang out, and what do some of themselves call themselves? Well, some of them call themselves content creators, and the content creators in this specific category, like, they don't really like Facebook. They love this other platform. So why were we trying to build a product? Why were we trying to build a membership on a platform where these people don't even want to hang out? And this amateur mindset got us stuck in a pattern, and we had the opportunity to step out of it and say what's possible and ask ourselves the questions, y'all. So 13 years later in business, I'm still asking myself, like, how do we do better? Because we don't always hit the mark. Now, an amateur's mindset will leave you feeling insecure about competition. And that one is like one that preaches to myself when I first started in business, y'all, because what happens is as we start to get a feel for our communities, for our business, for our customers, we get an idea of how many opportunities we are for them, for us, for the brand, for each other. And what happened to me is that thinking from the place of an amateur, it made me overwhelmed. Everything came back to, oh my gosh, is there enough? Is there enough time? Is there enough money? Is there enough resources? Is there enough people? And it was always like we hear about the hamster wheel that just turns and turns and turns. And it was very much like that. And, tying it back to Scandal here, which I love, it kind of feels like that episode where Olivia was like trying to like outsmart this super secret organization in a negotiation while she was kidnapped in a stage foreign country that didn't really exist. Y'all remember that? Listen, some of y'all get it, but I love that episode. And you see, this feeling can lead us to a place of isolation, of wanting to just isolate ourselves, because we begin to stop talking about our plans with the exact people that can help us, right? With the exact people that can help us like brainstorm and figure out resources and connections and all of these things that we just don't get done because we feel that we have to do it ourselves, or that we're worried about competition or somebody trying to steal the idea, where the exact opposite of that is that a beginner's mindset lets you actually enjoy meeting and collaborating with others who are just like you, that share similar values, that share similar beliefs. And one of the things that I love about Scandal is the way that the gladiators of Pope and Associates, like, y'all, they just get in drill mode. They're just like, let's go. And they jump into this place where they're just immediately asking other questions until somebody, it doesn't have to be the same person every time. It doesn't have to be one specific person. They keep asking questions until someone gets inspired to be able to propose the next step. So being open to starting afresh is like, in our own businesses, in our own lives, like in humanity, it's what turns classrooms and conferences and seminars and podcasts and Facebook groups. It's what turns them into spaces to be able to hang out, because we get to do the same thing with our admins, with our moderators, with our volunteers, with our teams, with our spouses, y'all. You see, asking questions and listening to others' experiences allows us to just like soak up this yummy, delicious vibe of collaboration, right? Because collaboration, that vibe, that energy, it gets us moving forward. It gets us fighting together, right? Like, I love when the gladiators and like Scandal, they get together, right? They're moving forward through fear, through overwhelm. They're all moving forward through the things that we need to shake off sometimes. And they keep going to get the result. And I know that there's some people that are afraid to collaborate. They're afraid to throw their ideas out there and share them with other people. And I was, oh, listen, even I get scared sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like, man, this seems too simple. Like, why would anybody do this? Other times I'm just like with myself. I'm just like, Roberto, this is the stupidest idea. Like, why do you think anybody would ever want to do that? And then there's times where I'm just like, Roberto, this is the best idea in the world, but we're not going to do it because we can't let people know that we are thinking about that. And I share that, right? Because I want you to see, I want you to hear, I want you to know that even I get scared sometimes, because just like you, I'm human. And what I have learned in my humanity, what I have learned through therapy, is that when I stay curious and when I get curious, that it's possible for me to stay curious more than to be scared. And if I get scared, if I get fearful, I try to explore it. I try to ask myself questions to ask what it is that I'm really feeling. Because if I am overwhelmed with fear, what happens is that sometimes it blocks creativity. And that's why I say here that, an amateur's mindset will fog your creativity, because the amateur's mindset is deeply grounded in insecurity. It's deeply grounded in fear. It is not based in a place of possibility and abundance, and thinking that you or your community or your business or your ideas are not enough. Y'all, that can leave you in a vicious cycle, right? The same side of that, right, though, is that oftentimes we see, and I know early on I saw this, and you may have experienced this before, like people see, like, follow this 3-step thing to this, right? Well, here's the thing, right? The same process that works for one thing may not work for everything. And so because it works in one type of business, it may not work in another business. And just because there's a process, it doesn't mean the process is for you. And, I'll take it to just life. So I love to bake. I don't know if y'all love to bake. I love to bake, like cookies, pies, cakes, like cobblers, casseroles, lasagna. Like, give me an oven, give me some fresh ingredients, and let's go. And so while I love to bake, especially cookies, we'll use for like the example of this, I love to bake cookies, but I have several family members who are also diabetic. So I could just be like, ooh, I'm making chocolate chip pecan cookies, or I'm making peanut butter oatmeal cookies, and we're just going to follow this and we're going to feed this to a bunch of diabetics. I'm going to tell you that does not end well for their sugar. And oftentimes there would be more insulin or other things involved, especially if like one family member who's a type 1 diabetic, that throws into a whole different type of spiral here, right? And so the process of of baking the cookie is not the same with brown sugar and powdered sugar and all of these. Oh my God, the butter. Ooh, the butter. It's not the same if I'm making it for family members who are extreme diabetics. You see, the beginner's mindset leaves us open to considering all the possibilities, y'all, and doing it with an open mind. And so when I first started baking around family members who were diabetic, I was just like, they're going to do what? And I'm going to have to substitute with what? And this is going to come out how? And I was just blocked because I didn't understand why somebody didn't want the yumminess of carbs and sugar and butter. Like, hello, it's butter. But as I understood diabetes, because I was a kid, I loved to bake. Even like I grew up with my grandmother baking. I learned how to make adjustments so they could still enjoy desserts with us. They could still have a high quality dessert. And sometimes it's funny that the adjustments that we made, oftentimes I would enjoy the one that was made for a diabetic with different types of sweeteners and, those types of things versus all the sugar and the brown sugar. How I sometimes would enjoy those most. Like, for example, like I love me some lemonade. I love Chick-fil-A lemonade. But do you know, I actually enjoy their diet lemonade better, which I think it might have Splenda now. I don't know. Back when I worked there in high school, it had Equal. So I don't know what they use now. But listen, I love it way better than the one with all the regular sugar. So, and beginner's mindset gets us to consider the possibility. And when we allow ourselves to approach every possibility with curiosity, right, it allows us to get the wheels turning, as they say, turning in ways that we hadn't thought of. And so I want to invite you to shake off your fears, right? Shake off insecurity and be okay with starting fresh. Be okay with starting new, right? Because just like Pope and Associates, a true gladiator is never scared to learn something new or try a different angle. And so I want to invite you this week, as you go about your business, you go about your community, as you look at the offers that you're creating to serve your people, to serve your community, that you say, what if I did this new? What if I delivered this a different way? What if there was a different topic or a price point? And ask yourself all the questions to allow you to re-explore the possibility once again. So I'm curious, what are some of the ways that help you grow? I'd love to know. And as always, shoot me an email, send me a direct message on Instagram, and I'll see you next week here on the show. Well, howdy, and thanks for listening to another episode of the show. Hey, if you'd love to stay in contact with us, visit robertoteaches.com to connect with me on social media, learn about our Facebook groups and other places that we can connect to help you on your journey to becoming the community CEO. And if you're loving the show, do me a favor. I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast listening platform.